Okay, so these primary and secondary sources, though they are available to us, we need to do something, that is that process. Next process is called data collection. Data collection means trying to take out information that is useful to you. It's quite possible that you may have a book, huge book, but all of these book may not be useful to you for your research. You may go for a field work and there will be numerous temples for, and if suppose your research area is, let us say, temples of Bhosles in Nagpur, so there could be numerous temples, but all that information is not necessary for you. That might be confusing, and all that will jumble up your research. So what you have to do is you have to collect certain data, and then process it, and then you present your thesis. So this there are different ways of data collection. There are different methods of data collection. Now, can you just type it in the chat box? What are the different methods of data collection that comes to your mind quickly? Yes. Yes, type anything, whichever way you think that data can be collected for your research. Otherwise, you can speak also, unmute yourself and speak. Yes, yes. Is there any way of data collection through internet? Well, that is the latest, very latest thing.
Sir,
Yeah, yeah. Anything?
so by taking interviews, asking questions,
Yeah.
or some records, maybe.
Yes, 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 yes. Very right. Taking questions, asking questions, interview and survey and internet. These are really the methods that we generally use for collecting our data. Well, I'll show you my PPT. Huh. So among the different methods, am I audible, visible to you as well as PPT both?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, well, okay, fine. So you see, in any research work, in any method of data collection, the very important thing is that taking notes. Taking notes means what? You have to read the book and prepare your notes for that. It's quite possible that you may have your main research might be mainly based on the field work or mainly based on observation, but nevertheless, you have to read the book. You have to refer to the earlier work done on it. For example, the example that I gave, you might be having a topic like temples of Bhosles in Nagpur city, but even you start your work, before that you need to read some secondary work that will only give you idea, that will create a framework in your mind. If you're it's kind of observatory work, you are doing research work, still you need to read the book. And taking notes is one of the important thing that is very important for the data collection. Then next comes survey. Survey means if your research is based on field work, you have to go there and observe certain thing. Then questionnaire, you prepare a questionnaire on paper and give it to the people from whom you want to take information, you want to collect your data. And these questionnaires and interview, they are generally helpful if your research is related to area, related to the past. It's very current past. For example, you cannot ask question about, let us say, it's very difficult. If you want to ask question about Chhatrapati Shivaji to somebody, you can ask, but that will be generally secondary, because people who have worked with Shivaji, they are no longer there. But if your research is related to, let us say, latest figure like Mother Teresa or Baba Amte, there are people who have worked with Baba Amte. They are still alive. You can ask them questions. So this question and interview, they are generally related to the current and very recent past. And of course, internet source is a very important source nowadays. So we'll be discussing all these methods of data collection one by one. So, while taking notes, obviously you will be using the book, a published book, or you might be using the manuscript that is a primary source. Before you start with your work of taking notes, you have to prepare the list of the book, and list of the book that is given in the bibliography. That is the reason if you read any secondary text, any secondary book, at the end, generally you will find the list of the book, and that out of that book, you have to prepare your list, the kind of book that you want to read for yourself. And then again, you have to separate it into the primary and secondary thing. If you remember, you have to start your work by reading some secondary books at least, so that will give you a kind of bird's eye view of the research that you are going to proceed. Now you once start reading your book, you have to separate the information into the different chapters. For example, your thesis might be having 5 chapters, and the information contained in this book, it's quite possible that some of the information is related to the first chapter, some of the information might be related to the second chapter, some of the information might be related to third chapter, so on and so forth. Now if you make just an analysis of this book in one single copy, or in one single file, if you are keeping your data on your laptop or in the computer, then there could be you may type the important information that you got from this book in the word file, or you may just write down. Now if you don't separate the information, like the chapter 1 information and chapter 3 information, if you keep it together, that is likely to create a lot of confusion. So while taking notes, you may have to make number of notebooks, which is generally dependent on the chapters. So first chapter, second chapter, and likewise so on and so forth. So information that you find about the first chapter, that you write in the notebook that is allotted to first chapter. I'm telling you about, if you proceed with the writing. If you proceed with the computer, then again the little bit of change will be there. You have to just open the first folder, chapter of chapter 1, and you have to write in the word file and save the word file in that folder. Similarly, you have to make number of folders, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the chapters, and the information that is relevant to the third chapter will go into the third folder. Relevant information that is relevant to the fifth chapter will go into the fifth folder. It's quite possible that you might be confused where to put this information, and but this information seems to be useful. In that case, you can make one extra folder and put all that information into that folder, so that later on you can use it. You can think whether I should be putting it into the introductory chapter, or whether I should be putting into the concluding chapter. And this with the computer, the research work and organizing of the data becomes relatively easy, because if you write with a hand in the first chapter, and then if you want to shift that information into the third chapter, again you may have to rewrite. It becomes a bit cumbersome process, or you have to keep number of pages. But in case of computer assisted research work, it becomes relatively easier. You can just copy and paste it, cut and paste it somewhere else, so that information is being transferred from chapter 1 to chapter 3. So this organization of the data is very important. Otherwise, you will be lost. You will not be able to understand where you have kept the information. Secondly, if suppose on this book, if you find this whole information, the whole page is important for you. So are you going to copy the page as it is? That is generally not advisable. See, you may sometimes quote the author as it is, but those quotes are generally smaller quotes, 1 or 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines mainly. You generally the quoting the whole page is not considered as a right way of quoting the author. You can paraphrase. Paraphrasing means what is given in this page, you can write in the short the idea that you understood. So the idea is transferred to your page, but the words are changed. Now you are putting those things in your own words. But it's very important that whenever you take the notes, you should keep the name of the author, name of the book, publisher, name of the publisher, name of the year in which this book was published. Otherwise, it's quite possible that if there are the version are published later on, 6th publication, 7th publication, the entry might change, the page number might change, as well as the page number. So this you have to use a bit of common sense. For example, if this is the book you are reading first, and you know that on the first page all the information is taken from this book, how to write a thesis. So then on the top of it you can write the name of the book, name of the author, and name of the publisher, and year of the publication. And on that page, if on that particular page, if all the information is coming from the same book, then with every line you don't have to repeat the same thing. It's name of the author is on the top, name of the book is on the top, all that relevant information is there on the top. So everywhere you have to just put your page number. Like some information is taken from page number 10, some information is taken from page number 50, so on and so forth. Likewise, your notes become more organized. So taking notes is is though we feel it a bit, a bit simple work, but when you go for research, it's not that simple. I mean, it should not you should not make it all jumble up. Like you just take a one book, and with that only one notebook, you go to library or sit with your books every day, and whatever you find relevant to your research, you just go on adding on into that, into that same notebook. It's like you are going on a journey and you are organizing your bag, but it's not properly organized. So it's quite possible that when you land at some other place, at your destination, you might be needing a handkerchief, but if you are putting your hand to take out handkerchief, the shirt may come out, or you need a shirt, and instead of shirt, the socks may come out. That becomes cumbersome. So you have to arrange your bags in such a way so that you need a shirt, you will get the shirt. Otherwise, and same thing is with the research also. When you take the notes, the data that you are gathering, only gathering data is not enough. That has to be arranged in such a way so that your work becomes well organizing. Then it's quite possible that in some of the cases there is no need of quoting page by page or author. You need to just write a summary, little bit of summary in the book. Generally, that is an introductory chapter where you generally take an overview of the work done on your proposed topic. So in that case, you have to write summary of the book, and writing summary of the book is quite challenging. If you read this book, see, the title of the book is How to Write a Thesis. So it's very well famous book. So any one of you, if they have any plan of going for research, this is a very good book to begin with, to try to understand how to proceed with your PhD thesis. Well, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to tell you that if this is a book which is anyway related to your research, and you just want to give the information about this book in the introduction, what you have to write you have to write a summary of this book in short. Now, how you feel that you are competent or you have reached a level where you can write a summary? The very important thing about this is that you read the book completely, and after closing this book, without opening the book, you are able to write at least 2 pages, 3 pages on it. Then you may have to shorten it further as you go on proceeding with your research. So until unless you close the book and able to summarize it, you have not understood the book properly. Understanding the book, we read it, but many times we don't understand it. That is not a right thing. I have read 200 books. Never people boast about it, but I don't think that the real question you should be asking: have you really understood all those 200 books? Have they been processed in your brain, in your intellect, and how you are reproducing or summarizing it? So this summarizing, writing a summary, writing a notes is not light task. The people who are intellectually lazy, I'm also people who are intellectually lazy, their notes, they get all jumbled up, and then they get confused where I have written, and your research becomes very boring and tedious and cumbersome. You need to be organized since beginning. All right, so this is all about taking notes. Any doubt you are having so far about this way of collecting data? This taking notes is a method which is generally used in all kind of research. See what kind of methods we are discussing one after another. It is not necessary that for your research only one method will be applicable. It's quite possible that you may have to use the combination of different methods to make your research valuable. So now, this taking notes is one of the methods. So this is I'll proceed to the next. If you have any question about this taking the notes, you please put it in the chat box. Well, okay. Now, the second method that is called survey method, or it is also called observation method. So this is generally used when you go for field work. It could be a field work when your research is related to some monuments. You have remains like Harappa, where you go and write down your observation. At the same time, it is also related to the anthropological kind of study, when you have to go and observe the tribal people, how they celebrate their festival, what are the marriage institutions, what happens at the time of marriage. So this is observation method. So but definitely before you directly go for the observation method, go for survey, some theoretical knowledge is necessary. For example, doing a research, writing a thesis on the temples, Bhosle temples in Nagpur, you without having any theoretical knowledge, without reading few secondary books on it, if you directly go for the field work, probably that is not going to be proper. How to interpret that field work, how to observe the temples, it's quite possible. You need to be a keen observer there, and that keen observation will be sharpened if you read the secondary book. For example, it is quite possible that the temples might have been built in the 14th century and it will be renovated in the 15th century. So it will be having two type of brick. One brick will be different than the other. So if you are a good observer, immediately it will come to your mind that why these two kind of bricks are there. That means these temples are being either built at two times, or it is being built first time and then it is renovated later on. All right, so that kind of mean observation is very important. And when you go and observe the field work, it's quite possible that you may have to go and visit that your area of research number of times. Next thing is that along with an in observation, you need to take your diary and note down certain points only. It's not advisable, it's not feasible also. For example, it's quite possible that if you are doing research on temples or a mosque, let us say mosque constructed during Shah Jahan's period, that kind of topic can also be there. But it is quite possible that the mosque may become crowded, people might be coming for prayer, and you just cannot go on sitting there for whole day. So you have to be need observer and write down points, and those points you can elaborate after coming back to home. And here also, like taking notes we have discussed, you need to keep the separation, keep the data better organized into the separate notebook or in folders if you are using computer. Next comes that is a questionnaire, and questionnaire is generally, as I told you, is generally used for the recent event. The person who has participated in the event, or person who has seen the event, is generally alive. He is an affected party. And this questionnaire, when you prepare questionnaire, generally it is prepared into two parts. The first part of that questionnaire will generally have the information about the respondent, person who is responding. He will be having his name, age, gender, qualification, income, etc. All that thing will be there. Now, what is the need of all these things? Why should we ask the people to write the information about themselves? Can you guess? Yes. Yes. Anybody? Why should be all that information should be there? You can simply give the question and take an anonymous answers. Will that not serve our purpose? Yes. Anybody? What happened? Nobody is willing to speak. Are you all guys very tired today? Well, Shahili Tause to get information. Well, okay, fine. But to get information about individual, what is the need of? Like you can, for example, if you are, let us say, you want to do about research on the water system existing in some particular village A near Nagpur, let us say. Now you go to that village and you ask about, you give the questions to the people about the availability of the water for agriculture, for domestic use, how much water is available, are you facing scarcity, that kind of questions will be there. And then people will answer that question. You can just simply gather your answers and you can come back and analyze your finding. What is the need of having the information about the people as well? Yes, anybody? Well, see, if you have this kind of information, this helps you in analyzing that uh, to tackle their problem. Okay, okay. Well, Sahili, we are a researcher. We are doing finding. We are not government official to solve their problem. This is one of the to study it in future. Okay, that is also fine. Well, but more than that, I'll tell you the reason. The very important reason is that if you have the biodata of the people who are responding, you can try to understand which group of people respond in which manner. For example, I'll tell you one thing here. If suppose there is a scarcity of water, what is the problem in the village? It's quite possible that the men who are mainly doing agriculture, they said that there is a lack of irrigation. But women may reply that there is a lack of drinking water because men are mostly concentrating on agriculture. So for them, agriculture, irrigation is more important, most important problem. But woman is responsible for providing water to her family and cooking. She might answer that not non-availability of the drinking water is of primary concern. Similarly, it's quite possible that the younger couple who are having young children, they might their problem will be that there is no school in the village, and the elderly person may reply that there are no hospitals because elderly people, they need a hospital service more than that. Are you understanding? So the people will respond in a different manner. A poor person may say that we don't have bus service to our village. But a person who is having a bike, he may say that we don't have good road for the village because for him, bus is not no longer needed for him. So that is the reason we can also have income. If the people in the higher income, they may expect road. People in the lower income, for them priority will be bus. For women, it could be something else. For men, it could be something else. Similarly, with education also, the people who are having less education, for them, having a school will be more important. People who are having already qualification, for them, job might be a matter of concern. And all that analysis you can do. You can try to find out the trend, and in the trend you can find out all those findings that I have told you, that elderly people need hospitals more. They for them priority is hospital. For women, it is a drinking water problem. For men, it is a irrigation facility. So for that analysis, you need to have this first part where you need to have this question. But now, what example I gave you is an example of a problem about which people may speak openly. Not a doubt, not a problem about it. But it is quite possible that some of the areas, some of the research topic could be, on which people will not be willing to disclose their personal identity. In that case, you can just tell them not to write their name, but it is always better to gather other information. If they are not willing to write their name, you can give them option. Okay, don't write your name, but you can write your gender and qualification and age and income, so on and so forth. No, nobody will find out. You have to talk to the people, because it is quite possible that sometimes people may not be willing to give the information. There are certain sensitive issues. For example, immediately after the election, if you want to study the trend, and people will not be willing to disclose for which party they have voted. So in that case, or which party they like, or which party, what is their opinion about the particular party. So in that case, you may just ask them, give them option. If they are not willing, they cannot disclose, will not disclose their name, but they can give rest of the information. So in this first part, where there will be data of the people, and in the second part, there will be a questions. So among the questions, there are different type of questions. Certain questions are open ended and certain questions are closed questions. Do you understand this open ended and closed question? Generally, open ended question will have a long answer. For example, I'll give you one example of the open-ended question. Elaborate the problems of the village. So this is an open-ended question on which one person could write number of pages. One person may write just 2 lines. So people are having freedom to write as much as they like. There are certain closed question. For example, what is your qualification? It is a closed question. It could be just BA, MA, matriculation, whatever it is. What is your income? This is a closed question. How many days you go to city from village? Close question. How much time does it take? Close question. You have a very short, crisp answer. That is called close-ended question. Then next, while preparing questionnaire, yes, ma'am. Just a minute. I'll stop this recording. Well, okay, so open-ended and close-ended question, you understood. Open-ended, generally you can speak for a longer period. And then while preparing question, there should be a proper selection of the respondent, the people who are responding to your question. You should select them properly. For example, if you want to discuss about the if you want to do research about the latest say, economic policies of the government, you cannot select people, the group of the people who are not educated, who don't understand the economics. You need to select the educated people. If you want to do research on, let us say, the irrigation facility, you need to select the group of the farmer. If you want to do the research on education policy, you have to select the people who are working in universities and colleges and the students as well, who are somewhere related to your topic. So the respondent should be properly selected. Questions should not be ambiguous. There should be It should be clear, and the meaning should be clearly communicated. And but there are certain limitation about the questionnaire. People might be unwilling to disclose the information. They may lie also. There are some people who fear, and the question generally it will be memory based. People will not definitely, if you them questioner, definitely they will not go and study in detail and write a very proper scholarly answers. Whatever just they can recall, they will just write. So the questionnaire, but nevertheless it is one of the important way of data collection if you are working on the contemporary topic. We are left with some more ways of collection of data, that is interview and internet, that we will take up in the next class, because now we have online meeting related to your examination. And I'll let you know when we are going to have the next class. I'll put the information.